Hey everybody, it's me again this week, Kelsey DeHolis. This week I'm presenting on virtual reality technologies. So a little bit of background and history. Assistive technology is any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially, modified, or customized, that it is used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities of individuals with disabilities. So that could be anything from like a wheelchair, walker, communication devices, weighted silverware, bars that you see in bathrooms or in the showers, and shower stools. Really anything can be modified or made so that people can act more independently and have more greater function. So assistive technology is intended to, as I said, improve the functional independence by circumventing environmental barriers and maximizes personal independence and increases activity participation. So virtual reality can fall under this. And what virtual reality is it's technologies that are closely recreate an actual environment or experience and may range from desktop simulations to full immersion 3D situations in which the user responds to visual and potentially additional sensory prompts in real time. So VR systems can include, more complex systems can include head-mounted stereoscopic displays, headphones, glove feedback devices. In the book, it mentions like the IREX platform. Some less extensive VR systems could be like the Nintendo Wii, PlayStation 2, or the Xbox Kinect that you can kind of set up, and it can detect your motion and you have an avatar in there and you can play the game that way on the TV or the computer. There's a lot of advantages to VR. I was actually quite surprised because I have never really considered VR to be like an intervention that could be used. I don't know why, but some of the advantages are that it gives an objective assessment of behavior, skill, and understanding in precise ways. It's safe to access interactive, true to life situations that would otherwise be inaccessible for some individuals. It can adapt and individualize according to the individual skills and abilities, and they can adapt and individualize according to the goals of the intervention that you're trying to reach. There's minimal space requirements. You can receive immediate feedback. There's the potential for personal development of like personal self-efficacy, and hopefully the skills and the things that they learn in these games, they can be transferred to other situations. You know, if they have been working on a certain part of a game or something that they've been trying to accomplish, and then they finally do it, that increases their self-efficacy and their belief in their own abilities, and hopefully that can transfer to the real world. VR also gives a sense of novelty, enjoyment, and fun, which can help increase their motivation in some situations. And it increases the repertoire of activities that individuals with disabilities can do and participate in. It gives ability for a person with disabilities to control his or her environment and succeed in activities. Creation of therapy can explore and attempt actions without real consequences. For some reason, something like this that to mind is Frogger. I don't know if any of you guys have ever played that, but you're a little frog and you're trying to cross the street and not get hit by the cars, the traffic that's coming by. So, you know, the real life consequence of trying to play Frogger in real life would be like getting run over by a car. But in the video game, you know, you can just start over and keep playing. And you learn those skills of how to safely cross the road. And another advantage is that there can be multiple users at one time. There are some disadvantages of VR because it is technology. It is subject to interference of the system, recruitment, individuals to test the technologies so that they can be improved and developed. Depending on the VR system that you're using, it can get pretty expensive. And the more complex it is, it may require more maintenance. They can experience hardware issues, software issues. Those things would need to be addressed, which can also cause more money. And often, sometimes when people are using VR, they can experience simulator sickness or cyber sickness, which kind of relates to like motion sickness. It's just kind of the disconnect there. It did mention though that you can reduce the cyber sickness or the motion sickness by having the person be the one that's in actually control of the movements rather than being a passive observer. And it also happens less frequently using video capture technologies where it's the user's own body movements that are captured on the screen that you can also see. So that does help reduce that motion sickness. The intended client group, and you can use it for individuals with dementia or Alzheimer's, traumatic brain injuries, cerebral vascular accidents, which is basically a stroke, cerebral palsy and other neuromuscular disorders, severe mental illness in people who are nomadic, visual impairments or blindness, intellectual and developmental disabilities, and for specific phobias in kind of the desensitization process. People with PTSD, anxiety disorders, and eating disorders. So you have quite a big group there that you could work with if you're doing VR. There are some definitions that go along with VR that you would need to be aware of. The first one is immersive versus non-immersive environments. And immersive environments are partially or completely surrounded by VR. So it would be viewed in 2D or 3D. And often for immersive or glasses that would kind of take you into that 2D or 3D world. Non-immersive are simpler systems. So that would be like the desktop computer that displays the environment, or using the Kinect or the Wii that would be displayed like on a TV or whatever. Presence is the degree to which the environment is capable of immersing the individual. So obviously if you have an immersive system versus a non-immersive system, that's going to have, the immersive system is going to have more presence. And some things that give it more presence are like wider viewing areas. So like bigger screens. It also mentioned like surround sound can also give VR more presence. Engagement is related to presence, and it's the degree to which a user is an active participant in the VR experience. And it does say that both presence and engagement are desired qualities for a VR system to have to make it more successful in intervention. Motion and video capture is when users see themselves and their movements on the VR screen. And your avatar is a representation of the user. So sometimes with the Wii, you can make your own little person and you can customize them, eye color, hair color, things like that, so it looks like you. Other examples from other games would just be like Pac-Man, like being Mario and Mario Kart. Really, it's just whoever your character is in the VR world. Some of the basic premises of VR is that it can be used in a variety of contexts and settings, and it's kind of what they're using it for right now is in two ways, and that's to improve functional abilities and more for real world learning, which would be like meal prepping or how to cross a street in a VR environment. And it did give some examples for the functional abilities. It was talking about people who've had cerebral vascular accidents. It said that they used VR with them, and it was noted that their brain plasticity and reorganization was better when the VR that they did was task specific. So it's skills that they're learning that transfer into their ability into the real world. It's repetition. So they have multiple opportunities to learn over time. The activity is fun and enjoyable. It's both tactile and visual stimuli are used. The task for each session is somewhat novel, so kind of new and different every time. The individual sleeps in order for the brain to be important as well. The second category, the real world, an example that was given was also with individuals who have had strokes or cerebral vascular accidents. And they made a system where they gave the user like a virtual wallet and a bus card, and they were given instructions for taking like 2 different means of transportation from their apartment in the VR to a cafe. So it was a situation that was realistic and it was modeled after real life. The bus lines, small city centers, residential areas. So it was kind of things that they would be dealing with in the real world and giving them that experience, but in virtual reality. So some of the best practices and principles with VR, these are just a few. There was quite a bunch listed, but it did talk about how systems that you can just buy off the shelf, which would be more like a Wii or a Kinect or a Nintendo, those systems are usually cheaper, they're easily available, they generally have fewer malfunctions and they're easier to operate. And they do have a great selection of games that you can use with clients as well. And these generally work better for individuals with mild to moderate symptoms or disabilities. And more specialized VR systems are more adaptable, and those are good for individuals who have more severe disabilities. The good thing about VR is that it's suitable for both genders, individuals of all ages, and for those with or without ambulation limitations. So whether they, they are fully functional, they can walk, or if they're in a wheelchair, VR is adaptable to either of those situations. VR should include enjoyment, choice making, and physical fitness. And when you're working with VR and clients, you want to keep your instructions simple. And in any VR games that you use, text should be avoided. It's better to have like representative pictures and icons, or an overlay voice is preferred. If there is text boxes that come up on the screen, it's important to kind of adapt that and make sure they stay on the screen long enough for the client to be able to read it, whatever the client's ability is to do that. The application to TR, I really liked what it said here in the book. It said, Botella et al., they believe that VR technologies have incredible potential, although this potential needs to be supported through additional and more stringent research. The question is not, does VR have a role in treatment and rehabilitation settings? The question is, for which populations are which applications most useful? So in the book, it does, in the application to therapeutic recreation, it does talk about a lot of different studies that were done. And it does talk about the benefits that we're seeing from that. Some of the studies were done with individuals that had intellectual and developmental disabilities. They put them through a VR fitness program. And what they found was, for these individuals, the VR fitness program was motivating, and it was found to really enhance their physical fitness. And this was the case for both individuals in wheelchairs and individuals who could ambulate with walking aids. They also did a study with patients that I believe they also had, they were had traumatic brain injuries. They noted that the patients had enjoyment and improved in confidence and self-identity in both the activity-based and the VR groups. The VR groups noted more strongly that their balance and mobility had improved, and this positively impacted their daily activities because their balance and had improved, so they were able to function more and do more activities just in their regular everyday lives. So there needs to be more research done on VR and how it can affect like certain populations, how it's been, there have been quite a few studies so far that have showed a lot of benefits through VR. And here are my resources. Thank you.